watching a starting pitcher come off the mound in the sixth and tip his cap gives me acid reflux.
One of the best parts about Radio Row here at the Super Bowl is you never know who you're going to run into, like a co-MVP of the 2001 World Series. Curt Schilling joins us here on PHNX Sports. Excited to talk to him. And Curt, we were just talking about this, Damon. You're going to find out it for the first time. Curt and I are basically one and the same. A couple, Arizona JUCO players. Now, I played at Scottsdale. I'm an Artichoke. He was a Rough Rider for WWII. And sure, I went on to a middling, sports talk career. And, you should be a Hall of Famer.
Well, first of all, I appreciate that. But, one of the hidden gems, outside of baseball, because people in baseball know about Arizona JUCO. One of the most competitive. We went to the College World Series, our JUCO World Series, lost to San Jacinto, the eventual winners. The year I went, WWII's won, I think, 3 or 4 titles. But as competitive, we played Arizona State my year. We beat them.
Yeah.
We beat Arizona. We could have beaten most D1 programs. And that JUCO conference has a lot of Major League alumni.
Yeah, it does. From Central, SEC, Mesa. It's
Phoenix, Cochise, yeah.
When I was playing, it was Wood Bat.
Yeah, well, that was a transition after, right? Because especially
you would have carved up some wood back.
Well, no, I would have loved it because I played at WWII, which is at Prescott, which is 5,000 feet above sea level, and it was a kind of a smaller park to begin with. And I was saying earlier, I threw to about a 6.5 ERA that year and got drafted in the second round of the January draft. But that was like a goodie. You could go 9 or 7 and give up 8 runs and have thrown a gem in that ball because the ball flew there.
Yeah, unbelievable to even talk about going 7 innings this day and age.
Don't get me started.
I want to get you started. I want to get your thoughts on a ton of things as far as, modern day baseball. Obviously, we're excited about the Arizona Diamondbacks. We'll get into the Corbin Burnes conversation. But, what is your stance so far? It really feels like, as far as the hitting approach, as far as the approach to, your old profession, just being on the bump, just how games are managed. What's your take on modern day baseball?
So watching a starting pitcher come off the mound in the sixth and tip his cap gives me acid reflux. I was always taught that innings pitched were the starting pitcher's most important statistic because everything else would take care of itself if you threw the innings. And I hate, part of the reason I'm here is I'm getting back into the game. I want to do color. I love to teach. I love to talk. I don't feel like anybody is as knowledgeable about pitching and the art of pitching and the craft of pitching except maybe Greg Maddux and all the things that go with that. But it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Because the number of true pitchers in the game has gone from 85, 90% to, I think, 20, 25%. The game is full of throwers. And you need to look no further than the postseason to understand and see that exemplified. Because if you're not precise and powerful in October, you get beat.
Yeah.
That's why a guy like Corbin Burnes plays well because power pitching with command is the ultimate. But it's a different game. And, I swore, and RJ and I talked about this when we were playing, I was never going to be a guy who complained about the new salaries. Mm-hmm. It is what it is because comparatively speaking, our salaries were the same to the players that came before us. And so, but I'm watching the sport and the evolution in a sense, and I think de-evolution is the word in some cases. It's hard to watch the strikeout. Let me be very clear. The single season strikeout record would be Randy Johnson's if he pitched. He would strike out 450 guys. And I'm not exaggerating because this whole lift and separate approach. Yeah, that doesn't go well to a 6'11 lefty who throws 100 and who's angry. But I think I could have struck out 350, 400 guys.
Yeah. Because
my basic game plan was pitching to hitters' holes. And if you strike out 100 times in a season, you have holes. Yeah. And I can exploit them. I don't think it's a more enjoyable game to watch in that sense. But it's the combination. You've seen it start with Moneyball and these, horrible Ivy Leaguers coming into the game. And, I tell people I was in the mid 90s, sabermetrics were part of my game. I didn't care what your batting average was. I cared what your swing percentage was on 0-0 counts and 1-2 counts. And sabermetrics was an integral part of my preparation in 1995.
Yeah.
So I understood, that batting average, home runs, and RBIs were absolutely meaningless statistics to me.
Yeah.
Swing percentage 0-1, first pitch take, all those other things mattered. And it's come to fruition as time has gone by that those are the stats that matter, right?
Yeah.
You look at OPS is on-base percentage plus slugging. Well, yeah, as a pitcher, that translates. I can get those numbers.
Sure.
WAR, not so much. I'm not sure what that means to me. But the game has evolved, and it will, because you're looking at a multi-billion-dollar. I try to explain to people, it's not a game.
Right.
Oh, you're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to play a kid's game. It's not a game. It's $11 billion your business. And people are going to find advantages, and they're going to cheat and bang on garbage cans and do stupid things to get an advantage because that's what you do.
Right. The prime example, I always go back to Kevin Cash going on in a World Series game with his ace on the bump and pull him in the 5th inning.
Blake Snell being pulled was the beginning of the end. I always said that was the, if anything ever explained to people, sabermetrics doesn't translate to October. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You can't sabermetrically manage a game in October and expect to come out winning by playing, because October, like I always looked at it like I played against a lot of pitchers who were April to September were far better than I was. Not one of them could have beaten me in October. And I always, in my mind, that was my approach because it's a different game. And the only, people always talk about why is it so hard for guys to get saves in those last 3 outs of a game. And I try to explain to people, if you look at getting a save, the final 3 outs of a 1-0 game, every hitter is up there with a different approach, right? It's get on base, get the run, do something fundamental to help. And they don't generally do that for all 4 at-bats.
Yeah.
In October, every at-bat of every single hitter is the bottom of the 9th with a 1-run lead at-bat. So if you can't make hitters swing and miss, you're not going to win. So in the 90s, remember, Glavine, Maddox, Schmaltz, the only guy in that rotation that worried anybody, and no disrespect, Greg Maddox, I think, is the greatest pitcher of all time.
Yeah.
Schmaltz was the only guy that scared you because he could make you swing and miss.
Yeah.
And Glavine and Maddox have very pedestrian October statistics because they pitch to contact, and that doesn't work in October.
Yeah, it's a great point. I just always love to imagine what it would look like if and Bob Brenly would probably never do this. Go try to take the ball from you or RJ in a big game.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen.
It wasn't going to happen.
But we earned the right, in a sense, to have that say. If you look at in 01 in the World Series, the only reason I acquiesced to coming out of the game was I knew I was going 1-4-7. And they're like, oh, we'll cut you here at 88 pitches so you can come. And I was like, well, I can throw 108. I'll be fine. But that was the mentality. And, I watch these games now in the postseason and having a pitcher say, yeah, that was probably as far as I could go. It's like, what? What the hell does that mean?
And it gets to like when I see a guy like Corbin Burnes, who the Arizona Diamondbacks just signed, and it looks like, relative to the market, got a deal. He wants to be here in the Valley. He seems like a throwback. I mean, I watched him, and I know he only got 1 start for the Orioles in the postseason last year, but he goes 7 deep, and it looked like throughout the entire season, he's a guy that you could rely for 7, 8 strong innings.
Well, throwback is another term for pitcher.
Yeah,
he's a pitcher.
Okay.
And I would tell you, like I said, in my mind, when I played, 85% of the starting pitchers in the big leagues were pitchers. Nowadays, I think it's 15% or less. When you look at a guy like Jacob deGrom and you look at his numbers and watch him pitch, Jacob deGrom has Maddox command with Nolan Ryan's stuff. Like, he was putting up numbers people don't understand. And then you look at Corbin and those guys, and part of the allure and attraction is, for me, the benchmark, because early in my career, I had Johnny Padres, who was my savior and the reason my career ended up being what it was, asked me about, because the media comes, how many games you want to win this year? And he used to say, how many games did you tell him? And I said, well, 20. He goes, well, then you tell me the 15 you're going to lose, and I won't start you that day. It's a very different mentality. And so, my number one statistic was 245. 245 innings was 7 innings to start for 35 games.
Yeah.
And, and when people talk about, proud of this and that, the statistic I think I'm most proud of is at 306. I threw 306 innings in 2001. And the 48 I finished with in the postseason were the best season innings I've ever thrown.
Yeah.
And then you think, people talk about injuries and this. Well, I went out in 2002, and during the regular season, I think I threw 268 innings. But that was my job. They were paying me $13, $14, $15 million a year to win games and pitch innings. And as an ace,
the market stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I pitched with RJ. RJ was the undisputed opening day guy, April to September. But when the postseason came around, I got the ball game one.
Yeah.
Because October was a different month. But RJ was the ace. On the day I pitched, I was the ace. And I looked at that like he set a bar that I tried to attain and reach, and it made me better.
Yeah. I think it's tough to compare, so I won't do that. But, with the addition of Corbin Burnes, you've got Zac Gallen as your secondary ace there. Merrill Kelly is a really good third.
I really am a fan of Merrill's.
I mean, what does the addition of Burnes do for the Diamondbacks?
Well, if Gallen's the guy I think he is, it does exactly what I just said, in the sense that you got Corbin going out there and putting up an 8-inning, 3-hit, 12-punch-out, no-run game. And Gallen, and I did, I can't speak for RJ, but I competed against RJ in that sense. I can remember he threw a gem in Milwaukee on, I want to say May 1st, and I was in a bad way. I had a if you back up, Scherzer a couple years ago came out and didn't pitch in October because he had his crooked neck. I won't even talk about that, but I had that happen in Milwaukee, and I couldn't move. I showed up for a Sunday day game on getaway day at 6 a.m., worked with my trainer from then till like noon, and then I'll never forget, I went out to warm up in the bullpen, and the first 3 or 4 balls I threw, Chuck Neff, our pitching coach, looked at me and goes, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I can't turn my head.
Yeah.
Ended up loosening up. I go 9 innings, give up a hit, punch out 17.
Yeah.
And I was competing against RJ's day in that sense, in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, I never wanted to pitch better than him because he did bad and I did good. I want him to do great, and I want to do better. And if Zach can take that mentality, and I think he will. I'm a big fan of his. I love this stuff. I love his approach. There's a synergy that those three guys, and Merrill Kelly's another one.
Yeah.
If they can find that in spring training and take that into the season, then that's golden for them.
Yeah. One last question before we get to the reason you're here in New Orleans here at Super Bowl Radio Row. Are the Dodgers ruining baseball?
No. Look in the last 15 years, it's been, I think, 13 different winners.
Yeah.
They're going. You go back to 2004. Excuse me. Look at those rosters: Red Sox, Yankees. Yankees had literally a Hall of Famer at every other position. The best teams are not the teams that cost the most. Now, I would argue if I'm laying futures bets, I'm putting a whole lot of money on the Dodgers because they can afford to. Where the Kansas City Royals, if they have a starting pitcher and they miss in the free agent market, then they have a fifth of their rotation they got to fix.
Yeah.
If Sasaki ends up being a bust, which he's not going to be, the Dodgers only have 7 starters to pick from to put their rotation together. The depth is more important to me than the star attraction. But it would be hard to bet against them because they've done it this year. And they just got better.
Yeah.
So, but it's a season of attrition. The schedule is a nightmare, and they're not going to be 100% healthy all year.
Yeah. Tell me what you're doing down here in the Big Easy.
So there's a little building down the street about a mile from here called the National World War II Museum. I was one of the original board of directors when it was founded. Military history has always been a passion of mine. I spent 6 hours nerding out there yesterday. With New Orleans being the Super Bowl and the millions of people that are going to come to the city, and it's a city still trying to recover from natural disasters and Katrina and the other stuff. I would tell people, obviously, if you're a history buff, it's a no-brainer, and add 2 hours to your planned schedule because it's that amazing. But even if you're not, it is a bucket list thing. Walking around that museum and I met a 100-year-old veteran yesterday. Wow. There are only 66,000 left. So we're in probably the last decade of them being alive. And I think it's up to your generation and my generation to make sure the next generations remember these men and women and continue and carry the legacies forward.
Is there any angle for being in New Orleans? Is there any reason
yes. So if you watch Saving Private Ryan, at the opening scene, those boats are Higgins boats.
Oh, okay.
Higgins boats were built in New Orleans.
Okay.
At the factory here. It's where they began, and they ended up being kind of a game changer for the war.
Okay. If they ever get it right and you get in the hall, would you ever consider wearing that Diamondbacks lid on your boat?
Well, I would tell you that would be the cap I would choose.
Okay.
Right. I grew up in Arizona.
Yeah.
And
Shadow Mountain?
Shadow Mountain High School, Yavapai Junior College. That would be the hat I would choose simply because of all the things that it entails and meant to my career.
Curt Schilling, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Man.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks. I appreciate it.